Hi, welcome to another Mama in a Minivan, which is where I take a few moments out of the many hours I spend weekly Uber momming my daughter. And during this time, I love to share around my passion of brain body biome, health, and wellness. And today I'd like to talk about movement, and not just any kind of movement, but movement that brings up emotion in our system, in our nervous system, in our sensory system, and why that's important, and how we can get real specific with our movement to help us process emotions. So I've been a lifelong lover of movement, dancing from the age of 4. And I remember in high school, dance was sort of my sanctuary. It was where I would process all the different emotions I didn't know how to process. I hadn't been given tools to know how to process. And sometimes I didn't even have words to articulate it. So I would process those emotions, whether it was, sort of a sultry jazz dance where I was exploring that side of myself, or a lyrical class where I could get to part of the story and the big emotions behind it, or tap into my grace in ballet class, whatever it was. There were just lots of opportunities to explore and feel that emotions could come up through movement. Well, fast forward, and of course my career is greatly inspired by movement, and I love inspiring others to use movement as a healing modality. But in 2005, when I started my brain gym training, I remember we were learning to go through movements that balance the nervous system. And we did this movement called the puppet crawl, same arm as leg moving, and I didn't like it. Didn't feel right. And at first I thought it was because it was so contrary to what I was used to. It didn't feel organic. But then I quickly realized I didn't like it because it made me feel. Yeah, it made me feel, and it made me feel some emotions that I hadn't looked at. I didn't know that they were still there because I'd shoved them down for so long. And so I would just kind of quickly do that in between the cross crawl, which is the oppositional or contralateral movement. But I would just do it briefly and get it over with and go back to the cross crawl where I could hang out all day. And I would keep on going, and I kept on taking more and more courses, and they would talk about how important the homolateral, same-sided movement was. And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't like it. I don't feel good in it, and I want to feel good. I thought I was moving to feel good. But I realized that it was a place where I could process and look at some of those emotions that maybe I hadn't looked at in a while. And one of my teachers, John Bradell, said the same-sided or homolateral movement is where the trauma lives. And it made me really stop in my tracks and go, oh, this is where we put that emotional trauma and the emotions that we don't fully process. It's where it's hanging out. And I realized quickly that when I was willing to go into the homolateral, same-sided movement, I could actually acknowledge and process some of those emotions I'd never processed, I'd shoved down, and certainly they would come up in different ways when I didn't process them, and little aches and pains here and there. And this opportunity to move into what for me was uncomfortable was a chance to really process some of those emotions and feelings and look at those. And then I went and coupled it with not only the basic puppet crawl, which is great and so easy to do anywhere, but I applied that idea to the Pilates apparatus and to the Pilates mat and to small props like balls, and found that, wow, this can be a regular tool where we can move through and process emotions, because no one taught us this. Why didn't anyone teach us this? I feel every child should learn this at a young age, learn how to process emotions, have these tools in our toolbox, and then we don't get tripped up or triggered so much, and it's a really beautiful thing. So I have these ways that I've combined the homolateral, same-sided movement with the contralateral, cross-body movements, and it's really a very therapeutic healing modality. I use it in my own practice. I have the honor of supporting others with their healing with these tools. And one thing I've learned too in over 20 years in this profession is that every healing opportunity, every healing situation or injury has a physical and an emotional component. And by doing these types of movement patterns, we're supporting both. We are moving through developmental sequences that support both. And that's pretty amazing. And it's so simple. You don't need the Pilates apparatus. Yes, it's an extra bonus and it's fun. You don't need it. You can just do it with a mat. You don't need any props. And I love being able to empower people to do that for themselves. And a lot of you have asked, how can you learn how to do that? How can you experience it for yourself? So I have a weekly virtual class. It's called a work-in on Tuesdays, but you can work off the replay as some people do. And we do core stability and mobility work. We do upper extremity weight bearing. And there's a thoughtful way that I plan the same-sided movements and the contralateral movements, as well as homologous, that's both arms or both legs at the same time, so that while you're doing all this stability work, and we use the small ball to help release the myofascial system, while you're doing all of that, you are moving through the emotions. It's pretty profound, and you truly are doing mind-body work in that time. You're truly helping to move forward and heal the mind-body system. I'm super grateful to have these tools in my toolbox and to be able to play with it and take creative license and create the synergy. So feel free, if you'd like to have one of those classes, message me, drop a comment below. I can send you a sample class or a link to join in if you're available on a Tuesday morning. And if you're looking for a free, fast way to get started, feel free to sign up for my Inner Resources free gift video series. Both of these options are available at the link in the bio. And I'd also love to hear how movement has helped you to look at emotions that maybe originally you didn't want to, and to move through and heal emotions. I'd love to hear about that. Thanks for listening, and remember, never ever underestimate a mama in a minivan.